Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, positively getting the Maryland Crab Cake Tour out on the road. New place this week. Well, it's actually an old place. It used to be the Bateman's in Reisterstown. It's Reader's Crab House in that plaza, right up in beautiful Reisterstown. We'll be there Thursday afternoon. There's a rumor Alan McCallum is coming by. I will have Back to the Future scratch-offs. I may even try to recruit Luke Jones to come out and stop and say hello, but the Orioles are in town all week. The Texas Rangers in town, the Tampa Bay Rays in town. Luke and I will be talking Oriole baseball all week, despite the fact that this is a last-place team, despite the fact that they came one sawed-off shotgun away from getting no hit on Saturday at Yankee Stadium, and despite the fact that Sunday, I don't even really know what that was. I'm bringing Luke in. Luke, it was your niece's birthday over the weekend. It's hot as hell right now. They're in last place. The Rangers will feel comfortable with 92-degree game time temperatures. They move these games back to 6:30. There's going to be 5 degrees more to give them than 7:35 was with Rex Barney. But I don't know, man. The road trip, we had some hopes for them. We said some nice things about them earlier last week. It was a little bit of scuffling. It was a little bit of a mess, a little bit like of what the season has been, which is one day they can score a bunch of runs and look okay, and one day they can get a starting effort that looks good, and one day Gunnar and Adley and these guys will hit the ball, and the next thing they're on the DL and they're in last place. It's been a nightmarish year, and I thought it was a little bit of a nightmarish weekend in New York, and in the way that it was.
Yeah, I mean, this still comes back to the fact that they fell 18 games on, right? I mean, you have a 3-4 road trip. You don't feel great about it, but it's not disastrous. It's not embarrassing in a vacuum, right? You split with the Rays, who have a better record than you, and you lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. And you coulda, shoulda won on Sunday, and then it's winning 2 out of 3. The 2 losses that we think about on this road trip that were truly embarrassing were blowing an 8-0 lead in Tampa, and then on Saturday, as you alluded to, not getting a hit until the 8th inning and losing in blowout fashion in that way.
I'll
But
think about how they pissed away Sunday too. That was another that was
sure.
its own.
I
That
mean,
you put that in put that in the loo for how to piss away a game at Yankee Stadium. And I've seen them. I mean, when I think of Yankee Stadium, specifically the old one in the late '90s, I almost got flippant and just tweeted this out. Have they ever beaten the Yankees in any game that matters? In the history of my life, have they ever beaten the Yankees when it matters? I don't think the answer is yes. I don't think you can find an occasion where they've beaten the Yankees when it matters. I mean, there's games in 1993 where they won a game or whatever, but it doesn't matter because they're in last place. It matters to them a little bit, but I do think when they go up there, other than that rat we saw that was this big during the playoffs 11 years ago, it is a house of horrors. Anything is possible there, and the Orioles can blow anything in Yankee Stadium over the course of my lifetime. It's no wonder people hate the Yankees the way they do.
yeah, I mean, I guess you'd have to define for me what meaningful games are, right? I mean,
Ah,
they've no, but they've won series there. I mean, they absolutely have. I mean, they won a big series there in June last year. That was their high water mark, right? So they've done that. I don't know how big this series was really, if you're actually looking at it like the rest of the league looks at it right now, right? I mean, the Orioles are 11 games under 500. For me, I don't know if it was so much a nightmare as much as it's another missed opportunity, right? For me, it's not so much, oh, well, you went 3-4 and there's another week gone from the calendar now, right? Another week gone from the schedule now for you to make up ground, right? I mean, that's really what this we're talking about the math at this point for me.
well, the most
And
important thing to the team is that. The most
right.
important thing to the team is can we make the playoffs? That starts the conversation. And most days it looks like they can't. Most
Right.
days it looks like they can't.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Have they played better baseball over the last month? They absolutely have. I mean, they've been I don't want to say much better, like that they've been so dynamic that throw a parade great or anything like that, but they've clearly been much better than they were at this time a month ago, right? They've shaved, it was 18 games under 500, and after they won on Friday night, I mean, it's the first time they'd gotten it to single digits under 500. I mean, they were 9 under 500, but that just speaks to how hard this is. That speaks to the math working against them. I mean, they're at a point now as they come home, you've got 85 games to go. Yeah, it's mathematically possible, but you start thinking about it through the lens of you got to play like a 91 and a half win team the rest of the year just to go 500. To win 85 games, which, 85 and 77 would kind of be for me, the bare minimum that you need to really think you have a chance at being a wild card. Yeah, you've got to play like what, a 99.
19 over 500, 8
Yeah,
plus 11.
but you've got to play like a 99 win team the rest of the way. I mean, that's the kind of pace we're talking about over the last 85 games here. So, I mean, the math's just not working out for them. And I think even before we got to the conclusion of the weekend, Adley Rutschman on the IL now with an oblique. He's going to be out until after the All-Star break because I mean that's it's a minor oblique, but that's a month, right? I mean an oblique or a rib cage or anything like that. That is not something that someone rushes back. I mean you
Can't
just
swing a
can't.
bat. You can't
Yeah,
throw a
you
ball.
can. I mean, and this is someone who has two swings, right? Right-handed and left-handed. So you lose him. Westberg has a finger issue. Thankfully, it looks like it's not going to be, it's not broken. X-rays were negative, but they've already said 2 or 3 days. But does it end up being more than that? Is there a ligament issue? Whatever. I mean,
Finger,
so
you can't swing a bat.
so right, but you have that with Westberg. You had a run of starting pitching, starting with Trevor Rogers in that 8-0 blown lead, where you had 3 out of 4 starts that didn't even go 4 innings. As a result, you option Yennier Cano to the minor leagues on Sunday, which I get it. He's had a very uneven season. He had a really bad stretch in May. I think this was much more they needed a fresh arm in the bullpen. Thankfully, Kramer gave them 5 2/3 and was solid on Sunday. But Sagano, last 3 times out, hasn't gotten through 5 innings. Eflin has been bad the last 2 times out. So every time it feels like they're gaining a little bit of momentum, they're playing better, more bad has cropped up. So you just look at it and it's tough to be optimistic looking through that lens. You can look through the lens of, guys playing better, guys that were hurt all year are back, like Hauser and Westberg until Saturday, and assuming he's not going to be out here too long. But, you can look at Gunnar Henderson being better against left-handed pitching the last few weeks. You can look at things like that, but there's still so much working against them. And it begins with the calendar at this point. I mean, it's just, whether if you don't believe they're good enough, I mean, then that's a moot point. But even if they are good enough to play pretty decent baseball the rest of the way, how well can they play? Because the calendar's really starting to work against you in that way, especially when you look at it through the lens of the trade deadline. I mean, we're roughly, 5 weeks from the trade deadline. So I think when you come out of this road trip, again, 3 out of 4, is it a disaster? Is it embarrassing? Just looking at that, no. But then you look at the fact that they dropped a game where they led 8-0. They dropped Sunday's game, which wasn't like a travesty, but certainly a missed opportunity, right? I mean, just look at the 8th inning alone. They had a chance to add on to their 2-1 lead. They didn't. And then Brian Baker, they were able to drive up the pitch count against him. I think he got a little fatigued as the inning went on, and he gives it up. Baker's been really good. I don't second guess him being in the game there. He's been one of their very best relievers, but he
Well,
didn't
my
get the
thought
job
about how
done.
horrible it is I've seen 2-1 leads, 1-run leads in
Oh,
the
I hear
eighth
you. Of
inning at Yankee Stadium,
course.
and it's just
It's
how many
deflating.
Armando Benitez's, how many Ubaldo Jimenez's, how many, like just I've seen that act before. That act where
Sure.
Yankee Stadium explodes late in the afternoon. They've been losing all day. It's hot as hell, and you go out of there heading home feeling like, oh, we lost 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, whatever it is. Especially when they're better than you, and they're better than you every year because
And
they
that's the
spend more
thing. I mean,
money every year. They're a better team every single year, always, unless you suck long enough and your genius GM drafts 5-1-1s and they all work out and their obliques aren't strained, and the new owner comes in and buys good pitching instead of bad pitching, and nobody's arms fall. I mean, all of these cautionary tales are things that your father and my father, they'd recognize losing at Yankee Stadium 30 years after my father's death. They'd recognize that. What they wouldn't recognize is how imbalanced the sport is financially, how screwed up it is that you have to lose for a long time and tell your fans you're rebuilding. I mean, the whole premise of it when you go play the Yankees is they should be in a different league. They're playing in a different sport when they have 5 MVPs on the team, in the lineup in any given day. So I'll say that's baseball, and that's the unfairness of baseball, and I've been at that for 35 years. But for the Orioles this time around, I'm trying to find excuses for them this summer or find the pathway out that doesn't lead to the firing of Mike Elias or the emergence of David Rubenstein or the Cal Ripken bobblehead thing this week. We're in the middle of a really, really lost season, and I'm trying to digest exactly what this means for the Birdland members that aren't going to give them money next year, like my buddy Mark, and different people to say, and then the Roku thing, which we'll get to in a minute, because I pissed on Roku all last week. Buck Showalter and Jeff Nelson have made me true believers after a weekend of Roku, but I thought the broadcast was good on Sunday. We can continue to talk about them losing if you want, but I thought the broadcast was good.
Yeah, and I mean, full disclosure, I didn't get to rewatch the entire game, but I watched a good, solid portion of it. I watched, I think, the first 3 innings, and I watched the last 2.5 innings. Um,
You should have heard
I,
about Buck talking about the humidity in Baltimore.
oh,
I mean, Buck was just fantastic. Buck was almost doing it to piss off Greg Bader. Buck was saying things on Roku that he could never say on Masson. Criticism, second guessing everything, asking Gunnar Henderson, if the ball comes to you, going to third or not with this? When a guy's on second, Gunnar either
Buck
didn't
did
hear
those
him
kind
or
of things.
pretended that he didn't hear him. But Buck was great. Buck was
Yeah,
fantastic. And Jeff Nelson was great too. I've known Jeff for 35 years, Catonsville's pride, always a great guy, always made me feel at home in New York. He took me around the Yankee Stadium clubhouse and introduced me to people on his team back in 98 and 99, so that I always had a great relationship with Chuck Knobloch and Paul O'Neill, like me, Roger Clemens. All those guys were great. So, I mean, and when Denny Nagel showed up too, that kind of helped things too. But you know, I love the Yankees of the turn of the century because of Jeff Nelson. So, yeah, there was all, and Joe Torre was a great guy too. But all of that being said, Jeff Nelson and Buck Showalter provided a better broadcast than anything Masson's ever done because it was it was compelling.
it was good.
It was a baseball conversation. It wasn't a patronizing Kevin Brown
Right.
apologizing for everything that goes wrong so he keeps his job. It takes one day of Buck and Jeff Nelson and Mac Vescursion calling a legitimate game and legitimately second guessing everything, acting like a manager, acting like a fan. What would you do? What should they do? What's the strategy here? Like all of that stuff that Palmer's not allowed to do that because they lose too often. I mean, literally, I found the broadcast to be really good, and they were winning for 3.5 hours of the broadcast. So, or 3 hours of the broadcast. So
Yeah,
it wasn't anything flippant. It was just enjoyable to be in a baseball conversation that's not neutered.
yeah,
Like literally, I watched neutered Rob Long cheerleading and Melanie Newman in the giant orange bird on her chest, and the broadcasters all have their bird heads on, and when there's a replay, they have to take the Orioles side, or Greg Bader will get mad at them. I mean, it's it was liberating to actually watch a baseball game at the bar with Buck and Nelly. It really was because they
it
weren't
was.
off
But
on anybody. They were good. They were good.
right, and there's also a novelty factor to it. I mean, if they did the rest of the season, it might not feel exactly that way,
Well, they
but it
didn't
was
know a
good.
lot about
It
the
was good.
Orioles. I mean, Buck didn't even really know a lot about the Yankees. I mean, Buck's coming in off the golf course or wherever
Well,
he's
but I
spending time.
think I think what's interesting about it, because you and I have talked about this a lot, and look, I'm not going to sit here and say and defend everything that Major League Baseball is doing from a TV perspective with different streaming services, and we've talked about this. I mean, the NFL putting playoff games on streaming services, right? The world's changing. TV, I mean, TV in general, that industry in general is trying to figure out what it's going to look like because of cable and satellite going bye-bye. And will go bye-bye permanently at some point in the next,
Well,
I don't know,
newspapers have
10
chosen
years.
paywalls, right? And we see
Exactly,
how that
exactly.
works.
Right. And exactly. So everyone's trying to carve this out. But I think when you have something like this, first of all, as I said to you, Roku, it's free, right? I mean, it's free. I have a Roku device that I use to stream on my TV in my living room. So I'm very familiar with, the Roku has their own live TV channels that they do. It's free, advertise based, streaming television, right? I mean, that's actually a part of the streaming market. Where you have Roku, you have I think it's Pluto, you have Tubi. I mean, these are actually streaming services that are free, basically an email address, and that's it. I mean, they don't ask for a credit card, anything. So that's part of it. That is refreshing as far as the Roku thing. But I think where this is where not just baseball, but I think the NBA is a big thing now. I mean, obviously the finals, the season ended on Sunday night, but NBC is going to be part of the NBA's national TV package again. There's been a lot of talk about nostalgia, right? The NBA on NBC and thinking back to those days. I think
Yes.
I think they're all looking for something that's going to differentiate their product beyond just, hey, we're showing Major League Baseball games, or hey, we're showing NBA games. And I think we'll use Buck Showalter as an example here. How great would it be if you had, and obviously you need to have competent broadcasters. You have to have someone who can do it. Not every former Major League Baseball manager would make a good color analyst. But I think how great would it be if you had one of these streaming services? Heck, I mean, it doesn't have to, whoever, NBC, Fox, ESPN, if they ever dip their toes back into baseball here at some point, which I'm guessing they will in some capacity, maybe not next year, but at some point, because it's live sports and it's valuable to networks that are trying to
Well, look at what
survive.
the Manning brothers have done
But
on Monday night to be a
right,
side.
that's a great example.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said if you had a broadcast, especially if you're going to do a three-man booth like Roku just did. And okay, it worked with manager and former player in this instance, and Jeff Nelson and Buck Showalter, obviously know each other, all that. But if you had how about if you had a former manager and a former general manager, and maybe you would have a broadcast that obviously, yeah, you're going to talk about that game, but you could also have the dynamic of a manager and a general manager. You're now a month out from the trade deadline. What kind of conversations are they having right now? It would be an opportunity to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, and share a little bit of inside baseball, right? No pun intended, of in terms of just something different. Something that's going to differentiate your broadcast. I think one thing that I've noticed with some of these, and I'll use Apple TV as an example, because I had a trial of a 2 month free trial of Apple at the beginning of the baseball season, so I did see some of the broadcasts. The picture's great. I mean, the technology that they use and all that, it's a good broadcast in that way. I found the actual broadcasters to be competent, but it's bland. You don't really know who they are. And I think that's where it's maybe a missed opportunity when you have one of these limited novelty kind of packages and you're not doing games all the time. It's not Roku doesn't have a game every single week the entire season. I think started in like mid-May or late
And they're all
May.
the weird 11 a.m.s,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's either 11:30 or 11 a.m. and sometimes it starts at like noon. It's
It's
not.
meant to be like
It's a
replace what
novelty.
European football is, right?
It's a
It's meant to
novelty.
be the 9 a.m. game on a Sunday morning to extend their
Sure,
day,
sure.
right?
I mean, we've seen that with London games in the NFL now. They do it, between London and the other Europe games, you get, 5 or 6 games that start at 9 in the morning. But I think it's an opportunity, like I said, to do something creative. On the flip side, you and I have talked about this, the on-field in-game player interview. I mean, they did it with Gunnar Henderson. I think most of those end up being a whiff. I have heard a few on ESPN over the years. If you have a player who really wants to do it, a player who really wants to do it, not, hey, we're asking you to do it, and they, PR really needs you to do it, and then they're just like, fine. That's what Gunnar felt like on Sunday. He didn't really want to do it. And
He
that's
walks
fine.
over to second base and he
And
has
that's
to
fine.
tell everybody he's mic'd up
Right.
because they don't know. And
Right. And I don't.
it's really awkward, man.
It
I mean,
is,
it's
no question.
awkward. It feels like I know enough about baseball. I've been around these guys my whole life before they threw me out
It's
20 years
weird.
ago. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't good. Buck knows it's not good. Nelson knows it's not good. They all think this is a dumb idea. You're not going to get anything out of me. I'm playing shortstop. I got a guy on second base. Shut the F up and let me
Right.
play the game. Like, it's it
There's the
defiles the game. It really does. It diminishes the significance of the game. You could talk to these guys between innings, and
Yeah.
the Masson thing turns into a disgrace. It turns into like a joke where they're throwing peanuts at each other. Like, I just do it right or don't do it at all. And to
and
me,
that's the
and you
thing.
shouldn't do it at all because there's no right way to do it. All-star game, fine, have at it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that's even goofy. But it it sort of shows you how unserious the All-Star game is when they turn it into Max Packin doing that. I just
I hear you.
it's not good. And I don't know how anybody in a meeting, male, female, black, white, baseball player, owner, anyone can go into a meeting and say this is a good idea. The players hate it, the coaches hate it. It's terrible it's not any good. So why don't they just say this is a bad idea to extend this? This is dumb. We've been trying this for 20 years. It's dumb. Do something else. Run
I
the
think
presidents around the stadium. Do a shell game. Get a hip hop DJ. Do something different. Talking to players in the middle of the game is dumb. That's it. I'll
Jeff,
never get down off of that. And that's
I
not an old guy thing.
I
That's a
most
competitive thing.
from a competitive standpoint and in-game standpoint, I 100% agree with you. It's fine in the All-Star game because it's an exhibition. I mean, it is. But I've seen a few here and there where it's good. But the only time it's when the player is, a media good guy candidate, right? I mean, someone who is really thoughtful, really wants to do it. Probably, frankly, who players who want to do it? Guys who probably have thought about going into media after their career. I mean, that's probably so I've seen a few of those over the years, but you're right. For the most part, it's not good. And I mean, heck, if you watch the NBA Finals, I mean, obviously they're not doing it in game, but they're talking to players now in between breaks and in between quarters and stuff like that, which I just think is insane.
Well,
Especially
the
in
other
the
thing that's dumb is grabbing John Harbaugh as he's
so
coming off the field at
so I,
halftime
right
and trying to get 10 seconds out of
right.
him
So
because it makes the network happy. It's silly.
but I think the point here, and this is where I think it goes back to complimenting. You like the Roku telecast. I liked it. I think there was a good chemistry between the three guys that they had in the booth on Sunday. Is you're going to have some things that don't work out, right? You're going to have some things. Innovation doesn't always work out. I mean, look at the Oakland A's with bright colored baseballs way back when. Charlie Finley and some of the things that were tried. Bill Veeck tried different things.
Hold on one
That
second. I don't want to be too interruptive of you, and I always am, but you just said Charlie Finley. I am having his niece on the show this
oh, that's
week.
funny.
She has written a book on it was her father was the business mind of Charlie Finley's brother. Her
Yeah,
father was Charlie Finley's brother, and he did all of the business because it was a little family business, the Oakland
sure.
A's, right? But so I'm having Nancy Finley on. So I just want to.
That's
She wrote a
funny.
book, and I just want I just want to throw that in since you
Yeah.
threw it out.
But the point with that is some of these innovations will fall flat and they won't last. I mean, I could think back to Fox doing the glowing puck with the NHL back in the 90s, right? In an era before HD TV, which in defense of them, no, it didn't work out. No one liked it. But at the same time, what was one of the big complaints in that era? I mean, even today, to some extent, it's tough to follow the puck. So
By
you're
the
going to
way,
have.
the blue and red puck of that got the Stanley Cup to my studio.
So there you
Fox
go.
Television, when they had the rights in the mid 90s, it was
Mid 90s, yeah.
1998. It was the year that the Caps lost to the Red Wings.
Oh,
They
okay.
brought the cup to my studio over in Towson. Well, I moved in here in August of 98. So it must have been like in April of 98, March, April, May of 98. They brought the Stanley Cup to me. And the whole promotion was I did sports radio. We had the Ravens then, the Orioles. They wanted me to talk hockey for a day. They offered me the cup in the studio as long as I didn't, because this is when Claude Lemieux was pooping in it on the Howard Stern show and doing crazy stuff. They brought me the cup, but the whole premise was watch hockey on Fox. You can now see it because the puck moves.
Yeah. Yeah, but the whole point with that is when you have innovation, and we've talked about this a lot, right? I mean, we've talked a lot about how are you going to grow your audience. We've talked about it specifically with baseball, but all these sports are trying to figure this out. I mean, the NFL is trying to figure out every way they can to stay on top, to keep the overwhelming edge that they have over the rest of the sports world and really almost the entertainment world in general. I mean, when you look at the TV ratings that the NFL does compared to everything else, not just other sports. But you're going to have some things that are whiffs, and you're going to have some other things that you say, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, one of the things about the XFL that NBC and the NFL stole was, having the camera on a cable over the field. I mean, that was something that was a really interesting innovation, right? And that's something that the NFL stole from the XFL, quite frankly. So you're going to have things like that. Uh, some of it, I'm in agreement with you. I'm not a big fan of the in-game player interviews by any stretch of the imagination. And for every good one that I have found, yeah, there are 10 others where they don't really want to do it or they can't hear, the technology doesn't hold up properly. So, but you're going to have some of that, right? You got to take some chances when it comes to some of this stuff. And I will I will not beat them up too much on that kind of stuff as long as they're delivering other elements that are good. And, again, I thought it was a good telecast. And, I think I've talked about this a lot when you're talking about the Orioles or any of these teams. We've talked about some examples I've cited that there have been some other teams in other sports that are struggling and they've actually put some of their games back on free TV. And I think there's probably a sweet spot to find whatever the middle ground's going to be as far as, yeah, you need to make your TV revenue and you're going to have to figure that out. And baseball is going to have a work stoppage that is probably going to coincide with figuring that out in a couple years. But
Boy, every time you bring that up, I just
I
shake my
know,
head.
I know. I believe me, I don't say it with any joy. I
I
mean,
wonder if
I don't
David
want.
Rubenstein knew about that when he bought in. Because I don't think Peter did. I think
I
Peter
mean,
just
who
bought the
knows?
thing. Peter had no idea they were going to go on strike. Peter made it up as he went along.
Yeah,
And
but
it was all new to him. It was kind of like when Peter bought the team. It happened within a year and a half of buying the team. And but this doomsday thing of the end of next season is
yeah,
every baseball person I talk to talks about that. That is so not what this sport needs 4 decades into my coverage of it.
sure.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just
I
not
mean,
what
it's
it
definitely
needs.
definitely not. I mean, you never want that. I mean,
Well,
at
it
the end,
cost Montreal the franchise last time. It's true the Orioles up tremendously. I
sure.
mean, had the strike is the reason the Nationals exist. Make no mistake about that for you kids out there that have rooted for the Nationals at any point or gone to a Nationals game. They only exist because the strike destroyed the Montreal Expos. Like
Yeah,
that's really the reason they're there.
right. I mean, would Washington have gotten a team at some point? I mean, maybe, but it certainly wouldn't have been then. It wouldn't have been that team, right?
Maybe
So
they would have stolen Oakland by
yeah,
now.
exactly. I mean, you never know, but yeah, I think if you're going to do some things that are different and you're leaning into streaming, it is nice to have some balance where you say, okay, with Roku, you literally download it, it's free, and you watch the game, and it was a good experience. So
I didn't
that's
even
good.
download it. I went to Roku.com. I clicked the
Yeah,
click. It
yeah, you
said
can do it
free. I
that
hit
way,
it.
right?
It popped up.
I meant the app.
It was
Yeah.
kind of gray at the top and bottom, and I thought, do I only get to watch this in sort of this tone? And then it kind of went away after 10 seconds, and I
Okay.
got the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I was watching the game literally from the beginning, but I did think to myself, they've diminished themselves by doing this. By putting the thing on
I don't
Roku,
know.
they've diminished themselves. By playing at 11:30 in the morning, they've chased some people away, or some people
Or
aren't
did
going
they
to
find
watch
some
it or whatever.
people? They might have found some people though. On the flip side, this is also about, as I was just saying to you, there if you go and look at where streaming is right now, yes, everyone thinks in terms of Netflix and things that you subscribe to, but it's FAST, like I said, free ad-based streaming television that is actually it's starting to make a little bit of a dent in the market because you have cord cutters who haven't subscribed to cable or satellite for years, and now they're seeing some of these streaming services go up in price. So guess what they're saying? I'm not spending all this money for 8 different streaming services. So now they're cutting out some of those. And meanwhile, you have Roku channel, Tubi, Pluto.
Boo boo.
Yeah, but there are a couple like that. No, Fubo's a paid. I mean, all of them have some free streaming channels. A lot of it's like niche. It's old reruns and like there's a Price is Right Bob Barker era channel that you can literally watch old episodes of The Price is Right. But the point is, baseball might have found a few people that way. I don't know. I think it's fine on a one-off. I don't want to see all Sunday games moving to 11:30, obviously, but you do need to do some things differently, and you're experimenting, and some things are going to work, and some things are going to get panned, and some things stink, and other things you might say, hey, that's a decent idea. We need to tweak this, but maybe we have
I
something
want to
here.
see the decent idea that really grows their brand, that gets them more
Sure.
money, that gets them more engagement, that gets them more fans, because they don't have that idea. I've been sitting here watching. I haven't seen any idea they've come up with. The Nets, by the way,
The pitch
saving
timer,
people.
the pitch clock.
Pitch clock.
That's
Um,
abs- do not diminish that. You that absolutely has been a game changer.
because the
We've
games
we've
aren't four
we've
hours long.
talked about it. Well,
Right.
there you go. You just said something that you said they haven't done anything. They absolutely did. Now, I don't know if it's had a great effect on pitchers' health as far as
I don't know that that's created new fans. It's made the old fans stick with it better. I mean, literally, I
I
don't know
don't
if they have
know.
fans because the game moves faster. Um, I
Okay,
think baseball fans are
I
baseball
don't know.
fans.
But I also
I
think
don't know
it,
where
that
they make another Luke and Nestor. The only way they make another Luke and Nestor is if
I
Luke
don't know.
has his
How does
nieces
anything do
and
that? You
teaches
know?
them, right? I mean, I just don't think people are 35 and have never watched a baseball game and they're farting around on Roku at 11 on a Sunday and say, oh, the Yankees are
I
playing the
don't know.
Orioles. I'll watch that. It's not,
But I think we could kind of. But it's a very general question that you're asking. But
how
why
do you
does
make
any?
a baseball fan?
But why does anyone like anything? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like you either like it or you don't. I don't know. And no, that doesn't. As I just said, yes, innovate and all that. But the game is a game. I don't want baseball to become football.
Well, don't make it harder for the people that already like it to find it. That's where I've been. Those of us who are still following along, don't make it tough on us. That's all. And
I
if
don't
you
know.
want new people to find it on Roku, if you're convinced that you picked up new baseball fans, new
And I don't
Yankee
know.
fans, new Oriole fans, or that you've serviced them by doing an 11:30
I don't
game on
know.
a Sunday, I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
hear
mean,
you, but and I hear you criticize a lot of what they do, but I also don't hear you suggest what they should do a lot of times. And I guess that's my point. I'm not going to sit here and say that I love that they put games on Apple TV. I don't. And there's not some of it is just, hey, Apple gave them money and they're going to do it, right? Just like the NFL is putting playoff games on Amazon now because Amazon gave them a lot of money. And I'm not saying that that should drive everything either, but at the same time, what should they do, right? I mean, if we're going to criticize, let's also be constructive then. And what should they do? You know, your tone to me almost sounds like, well, baseball's just for old people anyway. So I don't know. Like, so,
well,
I
talking
just,
to Gunnar Henderson doesn't make the game more exciting. I would agree with you. The pitch
but a
clock.
10,
I've been
but a
wrong on
10
that.
year
So
old,
you're right.
but you know what though? A 10-year old might think it's amazing they talked to Gunnar Henderson. You know what I mean? We also have to recognize that every innovation and when you cast a wide net, not every single element is going to be for you or me. So I also try to look at it through that lens. That's why I said, I'm not big in, I hate the in-game interview for a player that's on the field from a competitive standpoint. And most of the time it ends up not being that good. That said, there have been a few examples because ESPN, the Sunday night game, they've done that for several years now. Um, there have been a few over the years where it's actually really, really good, but it has to be a player that really, really wants to do it. Someone who is a spokesman for their team,
Sean
basically.
Casey.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony. It might have been Anthony Rizzo that I heard do it a couple years back where it was really really good. I'm just like, wow, this is actually a time where this was actually really interesting. So I hear you,
There's a
and there's
lot more of John Harbaugh sassing,
no question, no
whoever's
question,
there.
and believe me, the sideline halftime interview with a head coach or in the NFL or even the NBA. 95 out of 100 times it's completely forgettable, right? You might get one or two times where they actually say something really interesting. You might get two or three times where they are kind of a jerk and it's interesting in that way. But the rest of the time, it's the same paint by numbers question and answer that doesn't share any insight and it was a waste of
John
30
Harbaugh wanting
seconds.
to kill Brent Harris during a preseason halftime was an all timer for me.
Yeah.
That that
Yeah.
that was an
And it was
and
and that
that
was a
shows the real
preseason
John
game.
to me. That's what everybody should see of John. Honestly,
So, but again, if you're going to try to innovate, you're going to have some things that aren't going to work out, right? I mean, we all, if we're in any kind of space that has any type of creativity, we all should take some chances every now and then. And you know what? Sometimes it's not going to work out, and other times it will work out, and other times you'll say, oh, yeah, wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I don't know if I'll do it again, right? I mean, so all these sports are trying to figure this out. I mean, they really are because as we've talked about a lot, the TV landscape is shifting so dramatically that they're all figuring it out. And it's not just sports. I mean, all of these streaming services that have shows that they produce. And, I've seen interviews where they're talking about are they going to have the revenue to justify spending the money they do to make the shows that they do, right? Because of subscribe. subscribing numbers not only being at a certain level. So they're all trying to find a niche, in a world that's increasingly niche in terms of what everyone likes,
Well, that's why things like the show that Baja Biamila does, these new sports that parkour and
American Ninja. Yeah.
American Ninja War, like all of these things that have nothing to do with baseball, football, basketball, soccer, as
Yeah.
we know it, right? I mean, and even like the gambling shows, like the poker. I got Phil Gordon's coming on this week, by the way, a poker champion. He's got a bracelet. These other things that weren't traditional sports. I remember when Ted Leones has told me that your nieces are going to spend their whole lives watching a television screen of watching other people play video games against each other.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be a thing.
That's actually, it is a thing. It absolutely is a thing.
No wonder these kids are a mess. No wonder the country's falling apart. And I don't know what to say. Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke.
But it
We're
is a
watching
thing. It's
baseball this
crazy.
week and bitching about media. And, well, I mean, we can get on. Listen, I'm as guilty as anyone of talking on the field, off the field.
Right.
Do we have enough to talk about the Texas Rangers to do a whole nother segment, or should we just stay here and just say it's going to be 100 degrees and really hot and the team stinks?
Well, I mean, we've already covered it, but let's recap it. Adley Rutschman on the IL. It looks like he's going to be out until after the All-Star break. I mean, it sounds like it's not a serious oblique, but even a minor oblique's usually about a month. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Westberg with the finger. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention, man, what a nasty collision, Maverick Henley
Oh,
at the plate. I mean, it was so jarring. And look, I don't think there was anything malicious about it. It's just he's coming for the ball, and what it was, Jazz Chisholm is running towards the plate. I mean, it was so jarring because that has been legislated out of the sport. The Buster Posey, rules that came in, and you hadn't really, I mean, home plate collisions had kind of decreased over the last couple
well,
decades,
the other thing was
generally
the Chase
speaking,
Utley thing
anyway.
at second base.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
But
Just taking out that Ray Fosse, Pete Rose thing.
sure,
Yes.
sure. But to see that happen, and again, I don't fault either guy. I think it's just it happened. It can happen, unfortunately. In the same way we talked about the line drive into the dugout with the Rays reliever last week, which thank goodness it sounds like some of the reports are that he's going to be okay and,
Well,
and
we
and
all
is on the
remember the
mend.
cool ball tragedy, and yeah.
But yeah, but when you see something like that on Sunday, I mean, obviously it put the Orioles in a bind from the standpoint of, they had already lost Adley Rutschman. I mean, Gary Sanchez thinks he's getting the day off and suddenly he's catching, but man, that was just scary. I mean, it's a reminder of how the game's changed in the same way that like in the NFL, we see what the NFL is in 2025. And then you go watch the old NFL films of the 2000 Ravens, let alone going back and looking at like Mike Curtis and and football players from the 60s and the 70s, where they're taking their heads off, and it's just how the game was played. But seeing that collision, I mean, that was kind of a throwback, flashback of, man, you don't see that in a
I was
game
worried more
anymore.
about his arm, like
Oh, I mean,
and
he
then
just helicoptered
the
the way he
head.
did.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully, I mean, I I know Tony Mansolino said after the game they were going to be kind of evaluating him completely. He did acknowledge that they're going to keep evaluating him for a concussion. He didn't say he's in concussion protocol, but at least said, hey, we're keeping an eye on him all the way around because we know that. I mean, that was just a nasty collision. So, between that, Gunnar Henderson, the ball or the bat flies over the screen into the crowd. You don't see that often anymore. I mean, it's just a weird day. I mean, as disappointing as it was because the Orioles lost, it was an entertaining baseball game. I mean, it was. The broadcast was good, but when it ends the way it did and it caps a 3-4 road trip that, as we were talking about a week ago, felt like it was a really big opportunity for the Orioles, and they were 3-4, and that was with the acknowledgement that it could have been 5-2. I mean, they had an 8-0 lead in Tampa that they blew. And then Sunday's game was obviously very, very winnable. If not for the fact that you couldn't tack on a couple runs, some shoddy defense, you know, uh, base running,
They got
so
one hit on Saturday, dude.
and well, Saturday they got blown out. I mean, Eflin was horrible, and they didn't do anything
Well, Eflin being horrible is a
offensively.
problem in a
Sure,
lot of ways for
sure.
trading deadline, for
Well,
a lot of things,
and
right?
and even Sagano hasn't been horrible, but he hasn't been as good as last few times out. I mean, he hasn't gotten through 5 innings in his last three
I
starts. I
bet the
mean,
hot weather's going to mess him up a little bit. I
well,
don't think he's pitched in that.
it's that I think that's a factor. And hey, we've talked about this. Whether you're 22 or 35, this is a game of adjustments. And the league has now seen him in a major league environment. He's had success. That's not to say he's not going to continue to have success, but they know
But
what
they
you
know he's
are.
not pumping
So
99 either.
and that's the big part. And you've heard me talk about that a lot. When you're a guy that's not going to miss bats, boy, you have to be fine. You have to be so fine in how you dot your pitches, and you have to command your pitch sequencing. You can't be predictable. And it's tough. And that's not to say he's not going to get back on track and continue to pitch well, but his last three times out, 4 1/3, 4 2/3, 3 2/3 on Friday. And they won that game. So hats off to them that they won the game. But man, if you're trying to stack up how the Orioles make this run that everyone's still at least holding on to a sliver of hope that they make, more bad has cropped up here recently. And that's the problem. When you fall 18 under in May, everything's got to go perfectly the rest of the way. And we're seeing that that's not really happening. And
Well, you have to
I,
be the opposite of 18
yeah,
under, and they're not capable of being that right
it
now.
just doesn't
No
feel that
Rutschman
way.
and no
Yeah.
pitching, no,
Yeah,
no, not much
I
really.
mean, really, what happened? I mean, really, the story of the road trip. I mean, even though we talk about those two terrible, 8-0 blown lead and almost being no hit on Saturday, but the road trip, 5 innings, 5 innings, 2 1/3 innings, 6 innings from Charlie Morton. That was, they really needed that one in Tampa. 3 2/3, three, and then okay, 5 2/3 from Kramer. Their starting pitching has started to backslide. Remember
And
their
that will
starting pitch.
backslide your bullpen every time.
Yeah, exactly. And their bullpen's been fried. I mean, that's why they had to send Yennier Cano, who I get it, had a really awful outing this week and hasn't been as good. But if you actually look at Cano over his last 10 outings or so, other than the one in Tampa, he'd actually been pretty good. So he has options and they needed a fresh arm. So I think it was way more about that than, oh, Yennier Cano stinks and we're not happy with how he's
He just
pitching.
had to do
So
so many things that they didn't want to do.
yeah,
And in the years when like the Ravens have been faltered, they're playing players they don't want to play, players
sure.
they know they shouldn't have to play. And the fact that the catcher was the catcher on that play speaks to, now they've lost the backup to the backup catcher.
Yeah.
And they don't want Gary Sanchez to be the catcher, so they're going to play for a month with a double-A catcher. I mean, Basayo.
I mean, since we're talking about catchers, I mean, we'll see. When they didn't bring him up over the weekend, obviously there was a lot of reaction, and Mansolino made some comments that he was speaking in generalities. Look, Tony Mansolino is managing the Baltimore Orioles. He's not watching intimately what's happening at AAA right now. He's getting the reports. He sees the numbers just like anyone else. But, he made some comments about wanting Basayo to be in a position where he's completely destroying the league. And then people were saying, well, look at his numbers. Look how many home runs he's hit. I'll also point out, go look at his career starts behind the plate at AAA. You're still talking about someone who doesn't have 30 starts as a catcher at AAA under his belt yet. So that said, he is a special talent. Adley Rutschman is going to be out for about a month, it looks like. And who knows? I mean,
Well, they don't want the kid to come up and look like Holiday did last year,
and that's part,
or like Mayo, or like Kirst, that just go through the guys at Stowers, the guys.
And that's
that
where I
failed.
struggle with this. And this is where we need to remember: AAA numbers are not the major leagues.
They're
Look,
in last place. What difference does it make?
hey, I will say this much: I absolutely want to see Basayo up here at some point, but is it now or is it all?
Does he have a better chance of hitting the ball 8 weeks from now or now? Really?
I
Is he
think
going to grow that much?
Yeah, I mean that, and that's, I don't know how much it's that as much as, where is he behind the plate? He's got a great arm. I mean, there are tools for him to be a catcher. A lot of people have opined, oh, is he going to be more of a first baseman? Is he going to be a DH? He has tools as a catcher. Now, does that mean he's going to be a number one starting caliber catcher for a decade? Or is it going to be something that, we've seen guys, Carlos Delgado came up as a catcher originally, right? And BJ Surhoff was a catcher.
Dale
Originally.
Murphy was a catcher.
Yeah. So I don't know what his long-term path is going to be in that way, but I do wonder if you're not going to pull the trigger now. And I'm not saying they won't, because maybe finding out that Rutschman's going to be out a month changes their viewpoint rather than like if he was only going to miss a couple days, if he was going to miss a week or two.
We're also setting the
But
expectation he might have to go back.
well,
We're going to bring you up, and that the
yeah,
hardest part is always when you send them backwards.
right. And that's where I remind everyone this kid's not quite 21 years old. I mean, that's what we're
He's
talking
young.
about here. He's young. He's an exciting prospect. I mean, I'm sure you've seen at least enough Twitter videos from the Norfolk's account.
I
This
see the
guy's
ball
got some
going out.
he's got some serious power. I mean, he
Yeah.
really does. But does that mean he's ready right now? I don't know.
Kobe Mayo has been hitting those for 2 years and isn't
Right,
ready,
and
right?
Heston Kjerstad has great numbers at AAA, right, over the last few years. So we need to get away from, and think about it. We're also talking out of the other side of our mouth saying, "Oh, the Orioles have rushed these prospects. These guys aren't ready for the major leagues." And then what? At the same time, everyone wants to rush Basayo to the majors, right? So look, I'm not for or against it per se, but he is young. He doesn't have a ton of experience catching at AAA because he's had some health issues here and there that have, kind of limited him behind the plate the last couple years. But maybe they might be changing their tune if Adley Rutschman's going to be out 4 weeks, right? Which, I mean, Tony Mansolino said that most likely it's going to be after the All-Star break. So, because we're less than a month away from that. So, maybe that does change things, but maybe not. Maybe, I mean, hopefully Maverick Hanley's okay, or we might be seeing what Chadwick Trump might be back as their backup catcher or whatever. So, but this brings us back to what you just said. I mean, this season's just been such a nightmare in so many ways. And yes, the ways that I'll hold Mike Elias accountable. Brandon Hyde's already out the door, right? I joked with you a month ago. I said Brandon Hyde's going to have a better summer than anyone connected to the Orioles. And he is, because he's away from this and he's probably
Only
enjoying
one having more
himself.
fun than Buck on Sunday was
Yeah,
him.
exactly. So, but the injuries are a big part of what's happened. I mean, there's no way to downplay that part. It's not an excuse for everything, but it's absolutely part of this. I mean, how could it not be when you look at how many guys have been on the IL? So that's not absolving everyone. Let me be clear. I'm not being Mr. Apologist that everything's okay if they were healthy, but the injury piece is a massive part of what's gone wrong. And well, they're 33 and 44 with 85 games to go as they come back home and host the Texas Rangers. And the path is becoming less and less plausible, especially with some of the bad that creeped up on this road trip. I mean, the math is really against them at this point when you only have 85 games to go, and knowing what kind of pace you have to play just to get back to 500, let alone talking about 85 wins, 88 wins, something like that.
He's Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke. You can find him out on the interwebs. I am doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour on Thursday in Reisterstown. We're going to be out at Reader's Crab House. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I grew up with a Greg Writer and a Greg Reader, but it's Reader's Crab House, I believe, Reters. It is in Reisterstown. We'll be up there in the afternoon on Thursday. Alan McCallum will be joining us. Councilman Izzy Patoka, who I've been threatening to have on for a long time, is going to be coming on to talk about state of Baltimore County. We had Julian Jones last week at the Y. So we're moving around, having some political conversations, having some community conversations, having some baseball conversations, some football conversations, all sorts of things going on here this week. We're actually going to talk about extermination and bugs and flying creatures and mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff as well this week, because they're out, including the lightning bugs everywhere right now. So, Luke, we're just days away from gold watermelon and proper heirloom tomatoes. So I'm into that all summer long. It's summertime around here. Everybody cool out there. Keep the air conditioning down. Keep the mojo together. The Rangers are in town playing the Orioles. Luke will be sweating it out with free complimentary hot dogs at Oriole Park at Camden Yards this week as the Texas Rangers come to town, and we'll see how that goes. No football right now, a little low key there. Hockey's over, basketball's over, and we turn our attention toward a war in Iran on the 4th of July. It's lovely. We're America. I'm Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore positive in last place baseball and how great Buck Showalter is. Buck, come back. I miss you.